She told me I'd come back in a month. She was wrong and that mistake cost her everything. My partner said it loudly, without hesitation, in front of everyone. If you want to leave, then go. You'll come back on your own within a month. The room went still. Conversations faded into an uncomfortable hum. I stood there frozen, my glass halfway to my lips, trying to understand how someone I loved could say something so final with such confidence. I was 26. A software developer. Until 3 weeks earlier, I thought my life was settled. Predictable, even. I lived in Portland, worked remotely for a mid-sized tech company, paid my rent on time, planned my weeks in advance. I had been with Maribel for 2 years. We shared routines, grocery lists, inside jokes, a life that felt stable enough to call ours. Then the email arrived. A startup in Austin wanted me as their lead developer. The salary was nearly double what I made. Equity. Real responsibility. The kind of offer that doesn't just change jobs, it changes direction. I remember staring at the screen, rereading it 3 times, my heart racing. I felt excited in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not reckless excitement. Purpose. That night, I told Maribel. She looked up from her phone slowly, her expression tightening in stages. Austin, she said. That's what, almost 2,000 miles away. About 1,800, I replied. But it's an incredible opportunity. She didn't smile. She crossed her arms. So you're seriously considering leaving? I tried to explain. The growth. The long-term potential. How this could set up our future, not just mine. I talked about flights, schedules, video calls, making it work. She listened, silent, until I finished. Then she said, so you're abandoning me for money. That sentence landed heavier than I expected. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said carefully. We could do long distance. People make it work all the time. She tilted her head. Name one couple we actually know who did long distance and stayed together. I couldn't. Not immediately. She took that pause as proof. From that moment on, every conversation turned into a negotiation I didn't realize I was losing. Austin was too hot. Startups were unstable. I'd regret it. She'd be alone. What about her job? Her circle? The lease we just renewed? One night, while we cooked dinner, she said, you're always chasing the next thing. When is enough actually enough for you? I stopped stirring the sauce. This isn't chasing. It's growth. She repeated the word like it offended her. You're growing just fine here. But fine had started to feel like a ceiling. Over the next few weeks, the offer deadline came closer. The startup kept checking in. I kept delaying. Every discussion with Maribel ended the same way, me feeling selfish, her feeling threatened. I stopped sleeping well. Late one evening, my younger sister, Callum, called to check on me. She worked in finance, always practical, always direct. You don't sound okay, she said. I told her everything. When I finished, she asked one question. Do you want to go? Yes, I admitted. I do. Then go, she said. If someone loves you, they don't make you feel small for wanting more. That sentence stayed with me, but not enough. By May, I convinced myself that staying was the mature choice. I declined the offer. Maribel was relieved. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, said she knew I'd do the right thing. 3 days later, we went to a friend's birthday party downtown. By 11, Maribel's mood shifted. She grew distant, sharp. When I asked what was wrong, she said she was fine, then ignored me. Near the bar, I heard her telling someone, loud enough for others to hear, he almost left me for some job. Like I wasn't worth staying for. I walked over. My chest felt tight. That's not fair, I said. She turned toward me, eyes unfocused, voice rising. It's true. You wanted to leave. I stayed, I said. I chose us. You stayed because I made you, she replied. And you resent me for it. People were watching now. I felt something break, not loudly, but cleanly. I think I should go, I said. That's when she said it. If you want to leave, then go. You'll come back on your own within a month. She didn't whisper. She declared it. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I walked out. And that was the moment my life finally stopped shrinking. I didn't go home that night. Not right away. I walked for almost an hour through streets I'd known for years, but that suddenly felt unfamiliar. My phone buzzed in my pocket twice, then again. I didn't look. I knew who it was. I knew what the messages would say. Confusion first. Then blame. Then panic. When I finally unlocked the apartment door, the place felt smaller. The air felt heavy, like it had been waiting for me to decide something. I sat on the couch in the dark, jacket still on, and replayed her words again and again. You'll come back on your own within a month. Not if. When. The certainty behind it was worse than the humiliation. It wasn't said out of anger. It was said like a calculation. Like she'd already run the numbers and knew exactly how it would end. That night, I opened my laptop. The email thread from Austin was still there, untouched, like a door I'd pretended not to see. The last message was polite, professional, patient. The offer still stands if you change your mind. I stared at the cursor for a long time. My hands were steady when I typed. Is the position still available? If so, I'm ready to commit. I sent it at 1:04 a.m. I didn't feel brave. I felt calm. That surprised me. The reply came the next morning before 9. Absolutely. We're excited to have you. Can you start in 2 weeks? I said yes. That was the moment the story changed, even though she didn't know it yet. The rest of the weekend passed in practical motions. I packed essentials first. Documents. Clothes I actually wore. My laptop. Everything else suddenly felt optional. Maribel didn't come home that night. Or the next. On Monday morning, my phone started ringing. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the messages. We need to talk. You're being dramatic. I was drunk. You can't just disappear. I didn't respond. By Tuesday, the tone shifted. At least have the decency to answer me. This isn't how adults handle conflict. Wednesday morning, there was pounding on the door. I know you're in there, she said through the wood. Your car's outside. I opened it. She looked exhausted. Red eyes. No makeup. Hair pulled back like she hadn't planned to see me face to face. For a second, I almost softened. Then she saw the boxes. What is this? She asked. I'm moving. Moving where? Austin. She stepped back as if I'd shoved her. You're joking. I accepted the job. Her mouth opened, then closed. You already turned it down. We decided. No, I said quietly. You decided. I caved. Her emotions came fast after that, disbelief, anger, pleading, cycling too quickly to feel genuine. You're doing this because of one night? I'm doing this because that night showed me something I can't unsee. She cried. She apologized. She promised change. But every apology circled back to fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing control. Fear that I'd realize I didn't need her. And she was right about one thing. I didn't. By Friday, I was gone. Austin was louder. Hotter. Faster. My apartment was empty except for a mattress and my suitcase. I ate takeout on the floor. I worked late. I slept hard. And for the first time in months, I wasn't explaining myself to anyone. She kept messaging. Long texts. Photos. Memories framed like leverage. I didn't block her. I needed her to understand that silence was the answer. 3 weeks in, the messages changed again. You're really not coming back, are you? Then nothing. On day 24, my phone rang late at night. I answered. I miss you, she said. I listened. Then she admitted it, the truth underneath everything. She'd been scared. So she tried to make me believe I couldn't survive without her. I know that was wrong, she said. But you left anyway. I didn't leave you, I replied. I left the version of myself I was becoming with you. She was quiet after that. She didn't call again. She gave me 1 month. I gave her 4 days. And that difference mattered. Austin didn't feel like freedom right away. It felt like suspension. Like my life had been lifted off the track it was on, but hadn't landed on a new one yet. I went to work, learned systems, wrote code, attended meetings where no one knew anything about my past. To them, I was just the new hire who asked thoughtful questions and stayed late without complaining. At night, the quiet was louder. There was no one to check in with. No one to update. No one to manage emotionally. I didn't realize how much of my energy had gone into anticipating reactions until there were none to anticipate. For the first week, my body stayed tense. I'd catch myself rehearsing explanations in my head for decisions no one was questioning. What I'd cook. When I'd go out. Whether staying late was reasonable. Then, slowly, the reflex faded. One evening, I realized I'd ordered dinner without mentally checking if it would upset anyone. That small moment felt strangely powerful. The guilt lingered longer. It arrived in waves, usually late at night. Memories would surface uninvited, trips we'd taken, jokes only we shared, the version of her that laughed easily before everything became conditional. I didn't miss the relationship as much as I missed the idea of what it could have been if control hadn't replaced care. A message came from someone I didn't expect. Her friend, the one whose birthday party it had been, texted me. "I'm sorry about what happened. That wasn't okay." She crossed a line. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Validation hits differently when you're not asking for it. I replied politely. Briefly. Closed the conversation without reopening the wound. Work began to demand more of me. The startup moved fast. Decisions mattered. My opinions carried weight. No one treated my ambition like a threat. No one framed my goals as abandonment. That contrast changed something fundamental inside me. One afternoon, during a team meeting, the CTO asked for my take on a risky architectural decision. I spoke honestly, without softening my words, without checking for approval. He nodded. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." I muted my mic afterward and sat back, stunned. I hadn't realized how small I'd learned to make myself. A month passed. Then two. I stopped counting days since I left. The calendar lost its emotional charge. I heard through mutual connections that she was telling people I'd changed suddenly. That I'd chosen work over love. That she never saw it coming. I didn't correct the story. People committed to misunderstanding you don't want clarity, they want comfort. What surprised me most wasn't her version of events. It was how little it affected me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't defensive. I was busy building a life that didn't require justification. One night, while unpacking the last box I'd been avoiding, I found an old notebook from before we'd moved in together. Early sketches. Project ideas. Notes about things I wanted to learn. Places I wanted to live. I'd forgotten this version of myself existed. Someone who planned expansively. Someone who assumed growth was normal, not negotiable. I sat on the floor and read through it slowly. There was grief in that moment, not for the relationship, but for the time I'd spent shrinking to preserve it. That's when I understood something important. She didn't predict I'd come back because she knew me. She predicted it because it had always worked before. Control relies on patterns. Not on truth. Breaking the pattern was enough. One evening, months later, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't saved. I knew who it was. I let it ring. For the first time, I didn't feel tempted to answer. Not out of resentment, but because there was nothing left to resolve. I wasn't proving anything anymore. The next morning, I went climbing with friends I'd met through work. We laughed, failed routes, tried again. No tension. No scorekeeping. No power struggle disguised as affection. As I drove home, sweaty and tired, it hit me. This is what peace feels like. Not dramatic. Not triumphant. Just quiet alignment. She said I'd come back within a month. She was wrong. Not because I was strong. But because I finally stopped confusing control with connection. Control doesn't disappear quietly. It tests the door one last time. The first sign came disguised as concern. A message appeared late one night from a number I hadn't blocked. Different app. Same sender. "I've been thinking a lot. I just want to make sure you're okay." I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I missed her, but because the tone was familiar. Soft. Reasonable. Carefully non-threatening. It used to work. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another message arrived. "I'm not trying to pressure you. I just hate how things ended." Still no response. Then came the pivot. I talked to a therapist. They said unresolved conversations can cause long-term damage. For both people. There it was. Concern reframed as responsibility. If I stayed silent, I wasn't protecting myself, I was hurting her. I recognized the pattern instantly. She wasn't asking how I felt. She was repositioning herself as the injured party and me as the one withholding closure. That used to trap me. This time, it didn't. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Silence isn't avoidance when you've already spoken clearly. A week passed. Then she showed up digitally where she knew I'd see it. Photos online. Captions about growth. Quotes about letting go. A post about learning to love without control. People we both knew commented with hearts and encouragement. Someone wrote, "So proud of you." I felt a flicker of irritation, not jealousy, but recognition. This wasn't healing. This was reputation management. She needed the story to end with her as the evolved one. The one who tried. The one who was abandoned but brave. I let her have it. Because the truth didn't need defending anymore. A few days later, my phone rang during work hours. I stepped outside to take it, already knowing who it was. Her voice was calmer than I expected. "I won't keep reaching out after this," she said quickly, as if afraid I'd hang up. "I just need to say one thing." I didn't interrupt. "I really thought you'd come back," she continued. "Not because I wanted to control you. But because, you always did before." There it was. No anger. No accusations. Just an unguarded admission. I exhaled slowly. "That's exactly why I didn't," I said. Silence stretched between us. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. "But you were trying to keep me smaller so you wouldn't feel left behind." She didn't deny it. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she said finally. "I already did," I answered. That was the last time we spoke. After that, the echoes faded quickly. Not because she disappeared, but because her presence no longer carried weight. I realized something subtle but important in the weeks that followed. Closure doesn't come from mutual understanding. It comes from self-alignment. You stop revisiting the same moment when it no longer defines you. One evening, while unpacking groceries, I caught myself humming. No reason. No trigger. Just existing comfortably in my own head. That's when it landed fully. She didn't lose me when I left the bar. She lost me the moment she assumed I'd never leave. And I didn't win by walking away. I won by staying gone. Freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. It shows up quietly, disguised as normal days that no longer drain you. By the third month in Austin, I stopped bracing myself. That was the first real change. No tightening in my chest when my phone buzzed. No mental rehearsal before speaking my mind. No background calculation of how my choices might upset someone else. I hadn't realized how much energy that constant self-editing had taken until it was gone. Work became more than survival. It became absorbing. The startup moved fast, imperfect, intense, demanding, but the pressure was clean. If something broke, we fixed it. If an idea failed, we owned it. No emotional debt. No guilt disguised as concern. Just problems and solutions. I stayed late sometimes, not because I was afraid to go home, but because I wanted to finish what I'd started. That was new. Outside of work, my life filled in slowly. I found a coffee shop that remembered my order. A climbing gym where no one cared about my past. A taco place that ruined every other breakfast for me permanently. I wasn't rebuilding. I was discovering who I'd been postponing. One night, a coworker named Miles invited me to a small get-together. Nothing loud. Just food, music, people sitting on the floor arguing about movies. At some point, someone asked why I'd moved. I opened my mouth, and paused. This used to be where I justified myself. Where I softened the story. Where I explained her perspective so no one thought badly of her. Instead, I said, I needed a change. No defense. No details. And no one asked for more. That's when it hit me. Healthy environments don't demand confession. A few weeks later, I met someone new. Not through an app. Not through a setup. Just coincidence. Her name was Rowan. She laughed easily. Asked direct questions. Didn't flinch when I answered honestly. On our third conversation, not date, conversation, I mentioned I'd ended a long relationship recently. She nodded. That stuff leaves marks, she said. You learn what you won't accept again. No probing. No curiosity masked as entitlement. Just understanding. I noticed how different everything felt. When I needed space, I took it, and it wasn't punished. When I disagreed, it didn't escalate into character judgment. When I talked about my ambitions, they weren't treated as threats. There was no rush. No ownership. No silent scorekeeping. That scared me at first. I was so used to intensity that calm felt suspicious. But calm, I learned, is not boredom. It's safety. One evening, months later, I caught myself thinking about the bar again, but without heat. I remembered the sound of her voice. The certainty. The confidence that she knew how the story would end. And I realized something important. She wasn't wrong about one thing. I did come back. Just not to her. I came back to myself. That's what people like her misunderstand. They think leaving means chaos. They think independence equals loneliness. They think control is love because it keeps things predictable. But control only works on people who doubt their own worth. Once that doubt is gone, the grip has nothing to hold on to. I didn't become someone new in Austin. I became who I was before I learned to shrink. And the best part? I didn't need her to see it. I didn't need validation. I didn't need an apology. Because the life I was building finally fit. The 30 days passed without ceremony. No dramatic call. No midnight apology. No knock on my door. I didn't mark the date, but I noticed when it slipped by. Because nothing happened. That's the quiet truth people don't talk about. When you leave a controlling dynamic, the world doesn't collapse. It keeps going. And eventually, so do you. By the time the month ended, my life no longer revolved around absence. It revolved around intention. I had routines now. Morning runs before the Texas heat settled in. Weekly check-ins with my team where my ideas weren't challenged as ego, just evaluated on merit. Evenings that belonged to me, sometimes shared, sometimes solitary, always chosen. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. I guess I was wrong. No name. No greeting. I didn't need one. I stared at the screen for a long moment, waiting for the old reaction, the pull, the urge to explain, to soften, to reassure. It never came. Because I finally understood what that message really was. It wasn't closure. It wasn't accountability. It wasn't even regret. It was a loss of control. People who bet on your return aren't confident in love, they're confident in your self-doubt. When you don't come back, it forces them to confront something terrifying. That you didn't need them to survive. I typed nothing. Silence is not cruelty when it's honest. Weeks later, a mutual friend mentioned she was struggling. Not dramatically, just unsettled. Relationships felt unstable. Work felt uncertain. She told people she'd misjudged things and that I'd changed suddenly. I hadn't changed suddenly. I'd been changing quietly for months, years, and finally stopped reversing course to make someone else comfortable. That distinction matters. There's a narrative we're taught to believe. That walking away makes you cold. That choosing yourself is selfish. That love requires sacrifice of ambition, voice, and boundaries. But real partnership doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to stand fully, and stand with someone, not beneath them. The job in Austin grew into something real. The equity offer turned into actual value. I was trusted, challenged, respected. Not because I demanded it, but because I stopped accepting less. And that lesson reached beyond work. In relationships. In friendships. In how I spoke to myself. The old version of me would have wondered if I was too harsh. If I should have tried harder. If one public humiliation was really enough to walk away from 2 years. The current version knows better. You don't measure relationships by time invested. You measure them by how much of yourself you're allowed to keep. She gave me a month. She thought time would erode my resolve. That loneliness would drive me back. That comfort would outweigh dignity. What she didn't understand is this. Leaving didn't make my life harder. It made it lighter. I didn't come back because I finally understood something fundamental. The moment someone is confident you'll always return, no matter how they treat you, is the moment the relationship stops being love and starts being leverage. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. I hope she learns. But I also hope anyone listening to this learns faster than I did. If someone ever tells you you'll come back, with certainty, with arrogance, with a smile meant to shrink you, believe them. Not because they're right. But because it tells you everything you need to know about how they see you. And then do the one thing they never planned for. Don't come back. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.